Spring in Wyoming. Part 1. Mary's Notes. The four of us sit facing each other. Gary Stewart, Steve Higgins, Larry Watson, and myself, Mary Olson. Larry, our team leader, is talking, expose the plan of investigating Captain Brock's case assigned to us. The table in front of us is full of paper. The large screen in front of us shows the location of a room from different angles went to and a few other files that we find. Larry explains some details before dividing tasks based on our specific capabilities. Larry is stubborn. He is a genius, but still tolerant of listening to our opinion, 3 other selected detectives, to give feedback, or even change our plans if necessary. With bright blue eyes, golden blonde hair, and a firm chin, it gave rise to the aristocratic and charismatic impression. The overall appearance of Larry impeccably. A charisma, no doubt. He has the enchantment which could melt every woman's heart on earth. And his smile. Gorgeous. I was expecting Larry to do it more, smiling. I wished, because the fact told the world, Larry's not that easy. His golden smile was rare to show. A quiet man, indeed. But, just like I said before, Larry still has the credits. If someone asks me how my feelings about Larry are, I'll respond that I'm paying him respect. Well, maybe plus a little sense of empathy and admiration. Just a little, I guess. You know exactly what I mean by a little more than respect and compassion, right? Complicated one. I can't possibly show my feelings for Larry. He had no time for that. For him, life is only a transition, just a pile of mysteries to solve. It's about finishing one case, and further accomplishing the next case. As plain as that. Though Captain Brock says Gary is his twin, I disagree. Although Gary is also blonde, he had brown eyes and had no distinctiveness as belonging to Larry. Larry could do this, glowering, eagle-like. The blue is pure, always reminds me of the deep Pacific Ocean. The way Larry's look was so far into the soul, and, for a second or two, he skins your heart, and you will feel shelled. Strange eyes, because they can also turn to be warm and soft. Brief candles flames. Just like now, when us, having a discussion. Gary also has a solid chin, without the impression of aristocratic or gentry. But the nature of the two is similar. Perhaps that is why they have always been a compact partner. Gary, practically, is not even close to Larry. I dare to say. Speaking of others, my partner, Steve Higgins, has brown-haired with darker brown eye color. Sarah, his girlfriend, said he's the world's funniest man, although it was not that funny. Steve is great, more than people think. He has the skills that the 3 of us do not have, expertise like playing guns outside the force, shooting arrows, and throwing knives couldn't be matched. Larry had a ranch, also having knowledge and competence of a cowboy, but not changing anything. Steve's, which came from Nebraska, still the best. The way how he got on top had kept vague. I have no clue precisely when, where, and why Steve studied it. I am the only woman at the same time, the youngest in the team. The 3 of us, the men, were my seniors back there at the academy. Captain Brock chose me because, according to him, I'm smart, could be counted on. All of us quite good at disguising, but I could infiltrate more. Not a model, yet I perform better. Green eyes. Wavy black hair, always in a horsetail style, except on special duty. On a typical day, I'll wear a suit and tie my hair back. But at the moment I need to infiltrate in a party, like in my first disguise, I will let my hair cascading down to the shoulder, and wearing a dress. This time was the 3rd year I've joined LAPD, in a storm confusion whether I accept the offer to continue my law studies or refuse it. Coffee guys, I came in with 4 cups of coffee and a Taco Bell. Steve groans. It seems like we'll have another long night, he pretends to complain. Well, that's the reason you guys like me, right? Larry laughs before sipping his coffee. Huh, work maniac. I picked up the sofa pillow and sit down in front of Larry. An hour to midnight and the four of us get together at my house, discusses a case that we face. Thanks for the compliment, Mary. Larry smiles. Gary gets up from the chair and stretches his body. I'm bored, he yawns. Want to go to the roof? Said Steve, and the three of us instantly laugh. The last time we discussed a case in Larry's apartment, we had been waiting for a few things from the forensic lab. It felt like years, until we bored, totally. Larry took us to his roof, enjoying the entire lovely evening scenery. We chatted many subjects, no matter the weather. It was quite cold, forcing our jackets to be straightened. We were just back into Larry's apartment after the shine rose. It was fun. Moment of hilarious, which seems could not be once more repeated easily today. This neighborhood is getting crowded. Asking them to the roof of my house is definitely not a good idea. Gary bites into his burrito and approach. So, what's our menu tonight? It's clearly the wrong question because we are immediately approached by Eager and Open the File, respectively. Murder by gunshot. The possibility of a professional done. I've had a check of his blood sample in CODIS, no one can match. We do not find the fingerprint. Awesome, ah. Just look at what I found. Don't tell me you've got evidence. Our foursome snatches away to speak. If it is like this, certainly we'll work overtime until the morning. Larry laughing at our passion. Glad to be working with you guys. Well, I smile. It's an honor to be chosen in your team. Oh, is that so? I nodded. You are great. Larry shrugged. That's what I heard. I laugh. Larry put his cup high, toss then. I do the same as Larry, tossing my cup to his. Arg. I hate the happy ending. It's like I'm watching a Snow White drama. Steve makes a groan again. But he approaches. Gary laughs, raising his glass. For the team, he said. For the team, repeated the three of us and drink each of our coffees. I don't know how I could initially get involved in this mess. I was in the restaurant when a small uproar ensued. I know some colleagues in the police force are disguised and deliberately make this to lure narcotics traffickers. I should not intervene because it could, so I will even thwart their plans. But, when suddenly things going worst, it was turning into a gang war, with guns were being shot among me, I reached to my own. Protecting myself. My position is boldly dangerous because being stuck precisely between the two stockades, firing one to another. I'm sheltering under the table. I just wanted to sneak up when the glasses above me had been smashed by bullets. It scattered everywhere I looked. I could hear sirens getting close, but sure enough to realize, the condition is not safe yet. Right at the moment, I see Larry. He approached me, bowed his head, using his body to protect me. He has pulled my arm. Larry escorted me to his car. Mary, you make me worry, he said when we've been away from the crowd. For a moment, his words made me sore. We are one team. I don't want to take the risk and see anyone gets hurt. Oh. I am flabbergasted. A little disappointed with what I was thinking. I instantly realized that Larry had no other intention. I mean, even though the tone of worry in his voice, it was all about it, a leader's kind of feeling. I somewhat disappointed, to be honest. Not to Larry, yet for the stupid thinking that crossed my mind. Yeah, Larry is worrying me as a leader of the team. I was there, among the risk, and Larry's instinct guided him to save me. I am his member. We are a team. Nothing more. I pluck his hands. You underestimate my capacity, my tone raise, upset. I completely don't know which one made me angry most. The thought that told me I'm only a weak woman desperately needed to be helped. Or the fact Larry considered saving me because I'm merely only his team. He looks stunned and staring at my eyes. I feel my body as if paralyzed. Don't act by yourselves, Mary. We already share the task. We work as a team, the four of us. Team, huh? Was that the only word swimming in his mind? There he only cares about the work, the case, and the team? Wouldn't he should have had a bit of a concern to me? With my feelings? I am silent all the way. We arrive at the headquarters, and my face definitely looks turbid because when I come in, I slammed the door. Gary sees my turbid face, wondering what that slam was for, and asks Larry, "What's wrong with her?" Larry pointed his shoulders. "Have no idea." Gary shook his head. "Woman," he yelled in confusion. I feel sorry for the slam. I should have done it harder. "May I help you, miss?" I turn, almost shouting, to see Larry at my side. "What are you doing here?" I said, startled. He was not probably following me, right? "Just like you," Larry replied while following my pace to the supermarket. "Are you shopping?" Larry nodded. "I need some junk food, a few cans of drinks and chocolate." He is lying. I know Larry not to eat that kind of food. "I'm pretty smart shopping," he admits. I stared at him in disbelief. "Well, especially if it's for laptops, pistol, or some kind of that," he makes me smile. Larry helps my pushcart. In fact, he just accompanies my steps without buying anything. "You forgot the chocolate," I said while heading to the cash register. "I made it up." I laugh. Poor liar. Sometimes you are awful, you know. "I know," Larry replied indifferently while continuing to walk to the cashier. I arrived at the park early this morning and just find Larry in the jogging area, which we have agreed. No signs of Steve and Gary. "Where are the others?" I said after saying hello. "It looks like they still on the way," Larry answered while doing the warm-up. I do the same thing. After a while, he was making a few jumps and a little running. "I'm ready." Larry sounded sure, speaking right after his feet landed. "I'm so excited today. I think I'll win." "Ooh yeah, want to bet?" I signaled to the end of the path. "Is that a challenge?" Larry smiles. My eyes met Larry's again. His offer, somehow. Arg. My heart was melting for I don't know times. What should I do? Oh, my shoes. They saved me. I pretended to fix the ties a rope of my shoes to hide my face reddened because of an absolute embarrassment. "Only if you dare." I responded to his question. Trying to sound cool in this tying shoe drama. "Fine then," Larry nodded, "I'll buy you lunch if you win." "Lunch?" I weigh up. Actually, I'd prefer dinner. But, well, I think lunch is quite okay. We agreed and start the race. I got the lucky feeling this time for two reasons. First, Larry never knew before I was once a junior athlete. Not just that. Because the second was, I even won one short distance running competition once back here when I was younger. The mark was on me. The first, second, Larry blasted away, left me far behind. But not for long. Only in a few minutes, I could catch up to him. We were trying to lead, yet none of us do it always. We were like shifting it, although it purely not artificial. We naturally competed for one and another. "You should have a lot more practice in Wyoming," I'm yelling while running beside him. At Wyoming, I used the horse. "Don't be too hilarious." "I'll defeat you," Larry said, seeing the final line in front of us. "Just try it. Cowboy?" I blasted off, leaving him behind. Larry then caught me up, he meant it. Only a few centimeters left before I added my speed and arrived at the end of the track. A second later, Larry came and stood beside me with sweats. I cheered myself for winning the race. "Okay," Larry said, trying to control his breath, "I think the match was fair. You can choose any one restaurant you want." I smiled, he replied with another smile. I didn't know how my cheeks looked like, but it felt warmer at the time. Why did you become a cop? I love to mess around, I guess, Larry answered the question without further thought. It was something like carelessness. He's not serious, I think. I was listening there, right before him, enjoying the lunch that had become Steve and Gary's newest teasing for me. I could only blame them for having not come earlier at the park running race. "Oh, come on, Larry," I laughed, "a man like you, in my prediction, is the one who preferred staring at moonlight alone than having fun at the nightclub. There's must be something you look up to." "Ooh yeah? Why must I be like that, looking for something?" Larry began laughing. "Well, maybe because you had this happy living time since you were a child. I mean, I'm not happy." Larry cut my line, since both my parents died, and I was forced to enter the dormitory. Fine then. We can make an exception for that. But maybe you feel your life is boring, so you begin to search for new experience, challenge, anything except taking care of your father's company. Or perhaps what? True love? Larry's laugh was bursting. "You are so understanding," he mocked me. "Have you heard a prince in disguise into a commoner's fairy tale?" He wanted to test whether the prospective spouse willing to marry him because of his wealth, social position, or really want to accept himself as is. In the modern era where wealth and your excess already carried from birth, it's fitting to you. You make my career seem like a bad getaway. As if I'm a lonely man who desperate because no girl accepts me. Now, it's my turn to laugh. In fact, things were not like that. It's Larry who always kept the distances from women. Mostly after he was set up by a woman named Joanna a few times ago. So, if you are not looking challenge as normal people, maybe you search for something more serious like. Like what? The meaning of life? Larry just smiled again. Leaved no answer. "So, how long have you guys close?" "I'm sorry?" I looked at Steve with confused. "Yeah, you and Larry." I hastily shook my head. "Steve is not as you think." Steve shrugged. "Well, who knows?" "Steve, we just ate lunch. Nothing more." "Except only the two of you," Steve interrupted, "without Gary and me." "It's because you both did not enter the bet." "Oh, don't hesitate, Mary. With all of my heart, I don't mind if you and Larry starting to think of a personal relationship outside duty. Even if you both get married, Gary and I would be happy to be his best men." I chuckle. I couldn't imagine my life as Larry's spouse in the house and my leader at the headquarters. "We can spend the whole day talking about cases, Steve. Please spare me." Steve smiled, starting to run the car. "We never know the future, Mary. We never know." This is a fun holiday. We spend this Thanksgiving at Larry's ranch in Wyoming. We ride up to the foothills. While Steve and Gary are still busy tethers their horse assisted by George. Larry comes near me. "Come on, I show you something." He took my hand up the hill. "It looks like it will be a personal thing," I uttered a half-hope. Larry smiles. "I'm a woman, Larry. And therefore, you have a sixth sense." I shook my head. "Therefore, I am so special." Larry grinned again. We turn across the trees. "Look." "Wow," I gasped in amazement, watched the scene in front of me. From this spot, Wyoming looks beautiful from the top. Larry's ranch in the distance, his horses grazing, a winding river, and the wind blew the scent of the grass immediately caused a sensation that reconciles hearts. It's gorgeous, I said full of admiration. It's my favorite place. Larry looked around. I'm always here if I wanted to soothe myself. You can't do it in LA, huh? No, Larry shook his head. In LA and New York, everyone is too busy. Too frenzied. So, this is your cave? You can say that. Who knows this place besides George? No one. I'm honored. Larry smiles. I plan to show it at Gary and Steve, but I think, ladies first, he's looking at me. He definitely made me happy. I approached. So, what do you usually do here? Nothing. Larry patted a stone and sit on it. Just sit down, be quiet, and let my mind wander. See what you see, hear what you hear, feel what you feel. And sometimes you get an idea to solve the case that way? I guessed. Sometimes. But I rarely think of the job. Here, I'm not a cop and not the majority shareholder of the company. Here I am. He is like looking for the right words. Just me? Myself completely. For what it is. I smile. You look happier here. I'm just a cowboy of the village, he humbled. You're wonderful wherever you are. I still got the memory my first time disguised with the team. We entered a party held by a county attorney, which we suspect was involved in the release of a defendant. Many law enforcers will be present, but of course, the atmosphere differs from at the headquarters. I wore a black silk gown, styling my hair so that adding a pearl necklace was a suit with the earrings and my clutch bag. In the fashionable classic dress, I still looked decently and not cheesy. Elegant, maybe that's the word that is more suitable for me at this time. I got out of the car and saw my partners, 3 of them, are stunned. Wow, Mary, you're really wearing a skirt. It's a gown, Steve. You look. Larry tried to find the most appropriate word. Like a lady. I smiled while holding the turmoil in my heart. Gorgeous. Gary praised. Princess. Steve bowed, made me laugh. For a few moments, I even forgot that we are police on a mission. Guys, Larry cleared his throat, calling us officially, it's time to work, he reminded. I walked, while the guys were kept standing behind me. I stopped the step and turns, since when you boys become my guards? If someone dares to disturb you, Mary, I'll finish him. Well, thank you, Steve, I smiled and then walked again, but I think I don't need a babysitter. Larry, stay close to me. What? I might have acted like a 17 girl by forcing Larry accompanied me. I mean, I must have someone besides me, so our undercover look natural, I was excusing. Where's Steve? Gary? I could not find them, I replied. Or maybe more accurately, I am not trying searching for them both. We come in? Larry whispered. Yes, I nodded. I've checked. The keys so easily can be opened. We could use my hair nipper. I will set up the tapper while you cared for the situation. Ooh, Larry smiled. Okay. This is the 21st century, and you still unlock it with hair nipper, he commented. You have any better idea? I can hack the security system. It's easy for me. Or, as you said, perhaps we can act like a couple. I can pretend to drink and ask you to enter the wrong room. It won't be suspicious. Larry smiled. That's a great idea actually. This complicated. Whether Larry also had the same feeling as me. We are back heading to the party room when we meet Craig. Craig Hodges for a full name. He did not get along with me, or maybe with everybody else. Craig's kind of annoying. I still believed he's the last man I wanted to choose as a friend, even when you've got 100 years to decide. He is also not the one who would gladly have your chatting. However, he is a detective of the Missing Persons Search Division. Our case often intersects, and I have to admit that his work is good. Hey, Mary, did you have no better option instead of asking your team partner to the party? Craig greets me while taking the steak on the plate. You, for example? Get real, Craig. I've already got a headache by only imagining it. Craig laughed. Larry, I heard your team got a little prize from the murdering suspect. It's that a particular part of the human body? Craig asked, mocking us. Rather, the handpiece has rotted, and by the way, Larry pointed Craig's steak and passing him by. Looks like that. As a team that mostly made criminals go to prison, we often get threats. Larry always reminds us to be careful. The four of us are still mutually protected. We all saved and owe one and another. When we heard of the accident, Steve and I were at the headquarters that befell Larry and Gary's car. When we rushed to the hospital, we see the mother of Gary and Brad, his younger brother, crying in front of his dead body. I heard Larry also suffered severe injuries and is still in the emergency room. Suddenly I realize this could be the end of his life and he is alone. Somehow, I feel sorry for him. Gary's funeral conducted in Precedence Police the next day. Me, Captain Brock, Steve, and of course, the colleagues in the police force, paid the last tribute, without the presence of Larry. He is just conscious of his long fainted after the surgery, still not knowing about Gary. Steve, I asked him when we are both in the car. What will we say to Larry? Steve exhaled deeply. It's clear that he is not sure. As Captain Brock said, I think. Lying to Larry that Gary survived, and he is fine. I am wavering. Do we have options? I sighed. I remembered the time we were celebrating Thanksgiving a year ago. Larry invited us to Wyoming. He had no single family except the employees at the ranch. We were sharing jobs to be done with 4 more people but found out our turkey got scorched because we had happy chatting. We still picked up the turkey and then ate it after we got rid of the burned parts to respect our hard effort. We insisted that the taste is always delicious and just found a new special recipe. Ridiculous, but I was happy. All we've gone through as a team at a time like this, I realized that, in fact, we do not separate. We're like family. We get to know each other, not only personally, but even the people closest and our family. Loss of one member of the team made us feel fragile and incomplete, a hole suddenly forming in my heart that left me feeling empty. Everything will not be the same without Gary. I understand now why the team always was Larry's come first in his life. I probably will continue my education, Steve. Outside the town, I swallowed my saliva. I know the time is not right. But I can't stand watching out my friend killed, one by one, in front of my eyes. Steve's attaching his lips. He said nothing. How about you? I asked. You will being a cop, right? Should be, Steve answered, but sounded not sure. There's a good offer in Minnesota Police Department. But Sarah and I decide to get married. She wants us to move to Connecticut, starts a new life there as a family. You know, a quiet one. Living happily in our peaceful tiny house, through our days without the risk I'm being wounded nor murdered in duty. So, Larry will be alone then, I said. He always alone from the beginning, Steve softly replied. Both of us sit in silence. I didn't like the idea that we were leaving Larry and going on of our lives separately. However, to be chosen in an elite team, which made us had received many appreciations, indeed was a pleasant time to have. But we had options. We have family and people we loved. Something that Larry's not. Where's Gary? He will meet you shortly. He cannot meet you now. Steve and I replied almost simultaneously. Unfortunately, both our answer is different. Larry looks at us alternately, then sighed. He cannot be saved, right? He asked quietly. Steve did not answer while I looked down. And for Larry, it has meant everything. Larry is obviously trying to strengthen himself. Where is he buried? I am afraid Larry will shock if he finds out Gary is already dead. And make him shock can be dangerous on his wounds. But it seems that Larry can handle it well. I suspect he has been expecting it since in the hospital. We drove him to Gary's tomb, give him the opportunity of doing homage. He is calm, though it did not manage to hide the sorrow which is clearly visible on his face. We keep silent a while back into the car. Steve and I looked at each other, waiting. Larry sees us alternately. Can you please drive me someplace? Larry stands in front of the door, pressing the bell. Steve and I are standing behind him. The door is open. Mrs. Stewart is standing in the doorway, watching Larry with shock. Barely moving. Larry nodded. Ma. Just that, he says. But it is enough to make Mrs. Stewart hold him while sobbing, crying. Larry closed his eyes. I know he is trying to hold back the tears. Steve and I stand by awkwardly. My eyes are teary. We all sit in the kitchen, as it used to be. But this time the situation is different. We avoid as far as possible the talks of the crash. Of course, it didn't work. The investigations are chaotic. Your information to the investigators while still in the hospital don't seem to quite a lot of help. Gary's brother, Brad, suddenly speaks up. His stare on Larry. I will try this case to be reviewed. We cannot afford to act rashly and against the law, Larry responded. I don't like Brad's attitude. It's as if Larry is the one who is guilty, and not as a witness or other victim. So, what is your plan? Brad. Mrs. Stewart warned her son. I will ask for these cases assigned to me. No way, I cut Larry off. Captain Brock will not let you get back on duty without Dr. Nelson's recommendation. Not that fast. Then we are deadlocked. Brad stared at us in turns. A few moments passed with no one to talk to. I will try to talk with the captain first. Larry loosens the tie of his suit. Looks uncomfortable, his face sweating. Are you okay? I looked at him. The day starts darker. The air is cold enough. He should not be sweating. I'm overheating. Larry opened his tie. I feel a little claustrophobic, he added with a choked voice. I watched him fidget. He could not remember many things about the incident, and that obviously bothered him. We should not talk about this, I speak up. I'm fine, Mary. Larry responded. I'm speechless. Know that the fine are different versions. We left the house shortly after that. Larry wakes up from his sleep in shock. It seems like he just had a frightful dream. I looked at him, sitting on the couch with a gasping breath. Are you all right? This is the question I've made so much today. Larry looks at me like he's seen ghosts. Why are you here? He received a glass of water that I give him and then drink it. We are home together, Larry. Steve and I stop by here before going home. I was making coffee in the kitchen, and when I'm here, you were already asleep. Ooh, Larry squeezes his messy hair. It must be because the drug was reduce pain but made me quickly tired. Don't blame yourself, I sit down in front of him. You just had major surgery in the hospital, and the day had also been dissolved. I glanced at my watch. And besides, you're just asleep 10 minutes. The door is open. Steve appears carrying an almost full paper bag. Steve, where are you from? Larry put the glass on the table. I went out for a bit looking for a drink. Your refrigerator is almost empty. Larry looked embarrassed. I'm sorry, Steve. Steve flicked off his hand, gesturing that it is no problem. He placed the paper bag in front of us and then looked at me and Larry turns. Didn't I miss something? I shrugged. Don't ask me. I fell asleep for a bit, and got bad dreaming, that's it, Larry responded reluctantly. Steve nodded in understanding. About Gary? Larry nodded. I can't stop thinking about him. I swear I will catch the killer. My life will not peace before doing it. I've promised to Mrs. Stewart. We'll do this together. Steve's responded with sympathy. Larry looking back at me. I nodded. Larry smiles. Thanks, pals. The police department of course investigated the accident soon. It is not surprising when we discovered that Gary's death is not purely an accident. I know our team. From the beginning, I always believed they weren't such people who drove too clumsy till exploding the car. We suspect someone called Jack sabotaging it. But on the other hand, Larry totally sure Jack only took orders from someone else. The reason is that Larry once had seen someone, who then recognized as Scott, waving his hand right before Gary sat behind the steer. The same person he saw, vaguely, before he was unconscious a moment after the accident. Unfortunately, there is no other witness and proof which shows Scott involved. Larry couldn't attend the trial. He indeed gave information to the investigators, but Larry's condition has not been well enough. Based on that, his testimony became doubtful. Although Jack threatened to imprison, he shut up anyone involved except himself. The court eventually decided the evidence submitted is not strong enough. Both Jack and Scott calmly left the courtroom after being found not guilty. After Larry out of the hospital, the three of us try to investigate it once more. We suspect the judge and jury who handle such cases took a bribe and submit them to the court. But again, we lose. The court declared Gary's case is finished. Scott, who also present in the trial, walked out, accompanied by his lawyer with enormous smile lips. He approaches Larry. Only a few inches left when Larry treated him before Scott saying anything. I will reward you, Larry whispers with full of threats. I'm shaking. Scott taunting and pretending to fear. He passing Larry while spear his hand like repel flies. Excuse me, detective. I have a business to take care of. Larry almost hit Scott, but Steve and I hold him. Larry, don't. This is not personal. It's now Steve. Larry tries to get off from Steve, filled with anger. You can't run, Scott. I'll send you to jail. Oh yeah? Scott turns around, mocking Larry once more by his smiling. Can't wait for that. Are you okay? Yes. No, I argue. You answer too fast, Larry, and it means the other way. Larry idling. His face shows deep mourning. I'm a computer expert. I can access any data, reset the system, or even destroy it. But I can't revive the dead. Larry kicked the mound in front of him. I never saw him that angry. I should have been suspicious, but I didn't. I should have warned Gary but did not do. I've saved many people, but I even failed to save my own partner. I solved many cases, but I can't even catch the culprit. Tell me, what kind of police I am? Larry kicked off the ground again. This time it was harder to form a puff of dust. It's hard, Larry. Not only for you but for all of us. But it's not your fault. Gary was killed, Mary. He is dead, and I don't. So, you mean you want to die too? I snapped.
I never did such a thing before. But I hate to see Larry punish himself, which is not his fault, over and over. Gary's got a family and those who favored him. I'm not. You have Mrs. Lindsay, I mentioned Larry's aunt, who replaced Larry takes care of his father's company in New York. You've George, who has always been your friend since a kid. You've friends who care and love you. You have us. I'm speechless for a moment. You have me. Larry's still in his mood. You only pity and try to cheer me up. He turns away, moves his face in another direction. I've no more idea how to show Larry that those words were right. I realize this is not the time to discuss. Larry still shocks. He still reels after a court ruling earlier. Disappointed mixed with anger and sadness. Me too. We are exhausted. Listen, I pulled my breath, we can't talk now. But if you want to discuss it or need anything, you know where my house is. I enter the car. Call me. Hi, Larry said clunky. Hi, I still don't know what to say. You came. Yeah. At the moment, Larry's face diverted. That time you told me. If I want to discuss it, Larry's becoming more awkward. I hope that's not just for entertaining. No, I smile while opening the door wide. Come on in. Larry stepped in. He said hello to Cliff, my brother, who eventually came to visit me. Realized by the situation, Cliff soon turned off the TV, got upstairs straight to the room to give us privacy. I invited Larry to the kitchen, made him a hot sweet chocolate. Thanks, Larry said while he handed his cup. We are sitting facing each other. Then he is looking around, telling how warm the place it is. I smile. Although we were a team, talking in private like this is a rare thing to do. All this time, our relationship was just professional. I thought it's the explanation of why the condition became strange. I was going to Wyoming, but I missed the last flight. And besides, it feels like there's no place and the right person to talk to. So, you come here, I smile. Feeling happy because Larry simply considered me as the one. The right person who can be trusted in this time, despite his coming to talk about Gary. I was trying to call you first, Larry said, as if he's regretting the surprise he had made. I also called Steve, but he's out with Sarah. Don't be so awkward, partner. You always accept it here, I smile. Even only at a glance, I see Larry smile faintly and then sip his chocolate. Are you okay? He shakes his head. No, he admitted frankly. I can't forget Gary. PTSD? Post-traumatic stress disorder? I ask. It will be much easier to explain if he had that. After all, who's not? If something terrible happened like this, and it's not affecting the victim, the man, according to my opinion, indeed needed a psychiatrist more than everybody. Although we were dealing with homicide all the time. If one day I felt nothing. Not a bit of worry or sadness. I believe it's time to check my insanity. We're human beings. Death is always meaning something. Larry nod. I keep dreaming about the accident. Blur memories. It affects your wound? Well, the doctor said it properly heals in 1 or 2 years, Larry explains. I nod in understanding. Larry got severe internal injuries, other than a slight wound in the head that still needs to bandage until now. He insisted he is fine and forces himself to testify in court 2 days ago. Seeing his condition, he may have to abandon his horsing hobby for a long time and keep him from the shock that can aggravate the situation. How's your plan? I turn face. I'm not ready to discuss my plan resignation now. Not at the time when Larry needing most moral support after Gary's death and disappointing court results. I will start working next week, Larry said without waiting for me to respond to his question. It's something out of my prediction. Maybe working as a curing therapy for Larry. But next week? Isn't it too fast? You will start investigating homicide. Like this? You mean this? Larry points his bandage. This is fashion, Mary, he said calmly, not a bit looked like joking. I chuckle. One thing about him I liked is his ability to stay calm in most situations and laugh at all the difficulties. Soon the ice is melting. Our meeting turned into a better conversation. Do you know why people are crazy about fashion? Because they want to get attention, Larry speaks up, continue his line. Well, that's the point. This one works in the same way. He points to his bandage one more time. If you go to a cafe like this, I will behave as if we don't know each other. No way, Larry deny, I'm too cool to be abandoned. I laugh once more, then put my fist to his sleeve. Larry grimace. And then we smile at each other.
The time may not be right. But my scholarship offer can't wait. Sarah wants to immediately establish a marriage with Steve. So the day before Larry officially back to his job, the three of us met and farewell him. Larry drives us both to the parking lot of the headquarters. My heart suffers pain. This goodbye scene is killing me. Maybe I don't need to leave. Perhaps we can go on living like we used to be, working as a team, even without Gary. Hesitancy annoyed, it had made my steps stopped. Steve does the same. Don't, Larry prohibiting. Don't turn around, Larry repeats the words. I groan, trying to hold my heart to be not apart. Keep on walking and continue your life, Larry's voice sounds firm. My head bowed, almost cannot bear it anymore. Steve holds my hand, gives his support. I take a deep breath. Exhale it, and then nodded, keep moving with no turning, feels even more sorrow than before. And just like I've told you before, the time was not right. But we've discussed this since 3 years ago, the beginning our team was formed. We are free to decide where our lives will go outside the job, so this is it. No longer after Gary's case was stopped, Steve and I resigned. Then my legendary team met its end. Be separated, walking to our own paths.